Good morning. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Mother Honestly Caregiving and Work Summit, the future of work and families at home and at work. We're so excited to be coming to you from all across the US and internationally. So this is going to be a great day of content. Just remember that we'll have most of that programming will be on the live stream link on the main stage. We will have a few opportunities for networking breaks and we'll indicate those as such. Please continue to use the comment section throughout the day. We will be looking at those questions, comments that you have for our panelists and audience, and we can't wait to see everything that you guys have to share with us and for us to share with you. Before I bring up Blessing, I'm so excited to play a quick video by Indeed. The event is sponsored and powered today by Vivvi and Indeed. We've got a lot of great partners that have joined us. So we'll go ahead and play a short video to kick off the summit, and then Blessing will join me up on stage, and we are ready to kick off a great day.
All right, so first off, I would like if you could excuse the TV, so because it's keeping my baby occupied.
The goal of art, sorry. Vivvi, what did I say, honey? Thanks, there you go.
I joined Parents and Caregivers for a couple of reasons. I have experience on both sides. So I have two small kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. I also have a lot of experience on the caregiving side because my mum has very advanced dementia.
My current caregiving situation is that I'm a father of 3 beautiful little girls.
4-year-old daughter.
Father of 2.
Mother of 3 plus the bonus baby.
The father of 2 sons.
Primary caregiver for my grandmother.
Being a parent and a caregiver has become a lot more difficult and challenging for a number of reasons. But I think the most challenging is that you can't give 100% to everything all the time.
From being a part-time teacher to a part-time caregiver and still having their career responsibilities.
In terms of how my position as a parent and caregiver is now versus when I was at a different tech company, it's literally night and day. And I remember certain times at my previous job, I'd be looking to get time off to say, take my child to the doctor. And I'd have to maybe send 7 emails to try and get approval for this. Without a doubt, that is a 180-degree transformation over Indeed.
I can take phone calls in the morning and then do things like do chat in the afternoon so that when my kid is at her highest point, and I have a screamer, but she's not screaming because she's upset. She's excited and she's happy.
What we're trying to do with the Parents and Caregivers group is really to open doors for people, create different kinds of events for people with different needs.
Being part of the Parents and Caregivers IRG has given a huge amount of support and feeling of belonging in the sense that I'm not in this alone.
I'm most proud of the collective voice of the community that we've built. I was sitting in one of our events yesterday called Confessions of a Parent and Caregiver, where anybody can come and share something silly like,
hey, the pandemic's been hard. I've fed my kids mac and cheese and dino bites for a week straight. That's all I'm doing. And the whole group is just like, well, hey, at least they're getting fed.
But it's also a space where somebody can say, my child has told me they're non-binary and I'm not sure how to support them, and that scares me.
What I'm pretty proud of, we are working on educating our managers. I think it's one thing to going on parental leave. The other thing is though how your manager is reacting.
One of the jobs I've taken on is to think internationally about how we can improve and bring up everybody as much as possible up to a similar level of facilities and benefits that we can give to both parents and caregivers.
So I'm really proud of the work we're doing. I think it can have an impact on this society and our world. And I'm thankful to Indeed that I have the platform to do this life-changing work.
Welcome, welcome again. If you're just joining us, we're kicking off the Caregiving and Work Summit. I'm Kristen Hall, COO of Mother Honestly, and joining me as well, who is unmuting their mic right now, is Blessing Addition, who is, as you know, the brainchild, the creator, the CEO of Mother Honestly. Blessing, let's get started and get rolling right into a great day. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I can hear some echo. Are we okay? Perfect. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Vivvi and Indeed, for this wonderful opportunity to bring the Caregiving and Work Summit to families across the United States and around the world. 1 in 4 mothers say they turned down a promotion because of lack of childcare. Another 1 in 2 people have left the workforce in 2021 due to childcare issues. This is why it's so important for us to host the Caregiving and Work Summit. Mothers are in a mental crisis. 50% of moms are reporting anxiety, depression, stress, and exhaustion. This is unacceptable. And I am just super proud of the work that we are doing here at Mother Honestly and the work that our partners like Vivvi are doing to bring childcare to the main front as a solution for working mothers, for working families, for employers across the country. We also have amazing partners that are at our expo booth as well that are doing remarkable work, like Maven Clinic, like Maple, who is building a household management platform for women and families. So thank you for joining us. We have an amazing day planned, so stick with us. I know a lot of you are either working or you have kids in the background. You can be like me and put in your AirPods so that as you go about your day, the rest of the as you go about your day for the conference, you're able to at least still tune in. I don't want you dropping off because we have so many great things planned for you. We're going to talk about the future of women at work. We will talk about the post-pandemic future of childcare and what employers are doing, what our policymakers are doing. We are also going to talk about the sandwich generation and how that is affecting so many families across the country and around the world. Before I bring in our wonderful keynote, Charlie Bonello, founder and CEO of Vivvi, I want to just show you some of the amazing things that they are doing across the country. So if we can just roll up the video, I'll appreciate that.
Childcare has been one of the biggest pain points for working families for the longest time. Parents spend more on childcare than they do on housing, healthcare, food, and college. We have to make exceptional full-time and backup care available by making it more accessible and affordable. One of the biggest ways that we do that is by working with employers to help provide it as a benefit and an amenity, not only to their spaces, but to their people. When companies provide childcare for their employees, headcount turnover reduces by 50%. 90% of parents experience an increase in productivity. So providing world-class childcare for people's employees is the single most effective recruiting, retention, and productivity tool in existence.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that. And now I'm going to bring on the amazing Charlie Bonello, co-founder and CEO of Vivvi. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Blessing. How are you? I'm so excited to be here today. And hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sure our listeners and viewers around the country and the world are excited to have you as well. It's hard not to just love you from that video because I think a lot of time, seriously, I'm sure you already know this. You and I have had multiple conversations around childcare. A lot of times when we're talking childcare, it almost seems like it's a woman's issue, right? And that is one of the things that I love about the work that you're doing at Vivvi. And it's why I wanted you to be here to talk to us about childcare. But before we go into that, who is Charlie? Just give us a little bit of background about you and why you started Vivvi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Blessing. And like I said, I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Charlie Bonello. I am the co-founder, I'm the CEO, and I'm the first dad at Vivvi. So my 2-year-old Grace, who may make a cameo at some point in this, as we saw in one of the videos to start this off, has been attending our program since she was 3 months old. And that wasn't enough for us. So we went and had twins about 7 months ago. So I'm not just our first dad. I think I'm also our biggest customer by individual company size. Vivvi's done some really exciting things over the last couple of years. And the interesting thing is that we started the company before any of us had kids. For me, the story started about 10 years ago when I co-founded my last company. And we grew to have about 1,000 people under our purview pretty quickly. And it was there I saw firsthand the impact that childcare had on working families and their employers. Seriously, right when we hit 150 people, it got to the point where once a week, somebody would come into my office and say, I'm pregnant, or my wife's pregnant, or my partner's pregnant, or we just hired somebody with a kid under 5. Is there childcare around here? Can we bring the baby in? One mom brought her baby in every single day, and it was fantastic. Like, it really lit the rooms on fire. But everybody else would come back the next week in tears, and they'd say, "Oh my God, did you know it cost X thousands of dollars to put my kid in a daycare that looks and smells like a hospital, and it's 40 minutes away in the other direction, and it's only open until 3 o'clock, but I have West Coast clients, or I need to participate in this mentoring activity. And by the way, there's a 15-month waiting list, but it only takes 9 months to make a baby. Is it even worth it for me to go back to work?" And then I'd sit there and say, "It actually takes 10 months to make a baby." And they'd say, "Shut up, I know that." But everybody else would come, at that point, you start looking around and you say, well, you can close your eyes and point to a map of the United States, and almost anywhere that your finger lands, it's going to be true that families spend more on childcare than on anything else. And there's not enough childcare. It's one of these weird paradoxes where 75% of Americans live in a place where there's 3 times the number of kids to available capacity. And that's across the country. It's in highly dense areas. It's in some of the more rural areas. And it's not surprising that bleeds into the workforce in some really big and insidious ways. We know the big stats. You said them before. 50% of full-time employed women never go back to work after they have their first kid. And even if they do, mother, father, whoever, the average parent misses 30 days of work per year because of childcare breakdowns. And so when we really looked at the ecosystem, we knew that we wanted to create a program that aligned with family needs in terms of having incredible coverage, in terms of offering them flexibility, and in terms of giving them great care so that they can bring their best selves to work while working with employers flexibly to support them and their people wherever they are. And so I'm just so proud of the work that we've done. I'm so proud to be working with you and Mother Honestly today, and so excited to be a part of today's conference.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I think you definitely, touch on a lot of points that I think are important to working mothers. I, spent about 15 years in corporate America working for Fortune 100 companies, and, it was literally top of mind at every single point. Can we get childcare? Can we have childcare? Can we afford childcare? So can you tell us, how families are doing right now when it comes to childcare, especially as the economy reopens and women and men are obviously coming back to work slowly? What can we expect for childcare in the coming months?
I think that childcare has been a crisis for a long time. What COVID did was, number one, exacerbated the depth of the crisis and put it front and center so that nobody can ignore it any longer. And so, look, what do families need now? A lot of it is similar to what they needed before. They needed flexibility. They need coverage. They need exceptional care. The challenge is how do you make it affordable, right? And certainly the government is working on some really interesting ways of doing so. But the best expression of that we've seen is employers stepping in to help subsidize the care because they have as much at stake as anybody else, right? Think about it. Now it's at one of these points where 2.5 million women were forced out of the workforce over the last 2 years. And I say forced intentionally because while I'm sure some of those decisions were intentional and thoughtful and made with a full heart, if you look at the statistics, so many people over and over and over again have said it's impossible to balance the costs and the needs of childcare with my career. And that's so heartbreaking on an individual human level. On a macro basis, when the Fed starts talking about labor participation rates constraining GDP growth, then some of these folks start listening. And I think we're at this really exciting inflection point right now where whether because it's the right thing to do or out of self-preservation, employers are really starting to pay attention to the needs of their caregivers. And you said this before, right? It affects moms and it affects dads, but like everything else, it disproportionately affects the moms. I started a childcare company. I'm very fortunate to have great care for my 3 children. My wife is a nurse. She is the hero and the CEO of our family. I remember at the height of the pandemic at 7 o'clock, all of us going to the window and cheering and crying like everybody else did. For somebody like her, there is, or nurses everywhere, most childcare programs don't work because her shifts were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? For how many hospitality workers are they just cut out entirely? And so it really has to be about how do we think about the future of what our families are going to need in order to engage them most appropriately and really get the best out of them, because that's when everybody sings. And I'll say one more thing. Previously or prior to COVID, I think a lot of employers thought, hey, what about people who don't have kids? Are they going to be upset if we offer this as a benefit? Which is crazy to think about. All anybody wants is to work with other people who are happy, who are fulfilled, who are able to live their dreams. Now we're saying that they really can't ignore that everybody, any organization with a parent in it, that parent works with somebody, they work for somebody, and people work for them. And so it's a great way to support organization-wide productivity, but also culture, right? It says something really powerful about a company, that you can look at that as a candidate, as an employee, as a manager, and say, this is a place that cares about you as a person and wants to fulfill you in your journey across the marathon of life, not just individual little sprints.
Absolutely. I mean, Charlie, I think you touch on a lot of great points there, especially when it comes to employers. I've always said it, and I've always said that, childcare is a workplace issue. We can't ignore childcare. And it doesn't even matter whether, we have folks that don't have children yet. But what matters is that we continue to diversify how we care for our employees. Some employees will require childcare, and some it's pet care, and some it's elder care. And so we need to continue to create these solutions. And I really appreciate what you said about, various ways that employees, right, can continue to access care, whether it's through employer-based childcare like Vivvi or other channels. So a quick question for you, because we get this all the time with women and men and families within our community, and the biggest question we get is, look, listen, I can't afford childcare, and so how can I approach my manager in a way that makes sense to share, right, my situation and get some support? And a lot of times, just like you said, right, they don't want it to come across as though they are asking for a favor. So how have you seen, employees sort of be that driver for an employer to say, yes, we need to think about childcare because, it's important to our employees?
Yeah, it is a great question. I'll say first, never underestimate the power of mothers. Through and through, we've seen when we hit 5 moms from a company that is asking about the program and we put them together, we know that company is going to sign on in the next couple of weeks. And so we've actually put together 2 resources that I think we can share. One is our caregiving playbook, and another is actually a worksheet for parents who are thinking about how do you bring this to your employer. And part of it comes down to understanding what is the broad impact, right? We mentioned some of the stats before. 50% of full-time employed women never go back to work after they have their first kid. What is the cost of turnover? How important is recruiting? How do you quantify productivity? And then how do you add that human element in it? A second component is looking at other companies in your industry and seeing what they're doing. Because increasingly, we're finding that so many employers are doing this to get a competitive advantage, right? And ultimately, if that is something that dries up, and parents have options. Look at the labor market right now, right? It is disgusting that we've given back 35 years of women labor participation rates over the last 3 years. But how do we get this back? It's through childcare and supporting families. And so, look, there are a couple of things that we've seen be really effective. Number one, we're always here to be advocates. My email address is charlie@vivvi.co. I'm happy to brainstorm and chat with anybody, and that is a broad offering to people. Number two is really thinking about what are the channels that you have internally. Are there ERGs that you can speak to? Are there other parents that we can speak to? And how do we quantify the scope of the entire problem within the organization to really bring it forward and express that it's not just a want, it really is a need.
I love that so much, Charlie. I mean, I think that a lot of mothers right now, as you can see, we said 50% are in a mental crisis, and a lot of that, right, is this idea that women can't work because there's no childcare, and so when there's no childcare, you have to do everything yourself, and when you do everything yourself, you break down, and that's the biggest thing. So I want to kind of switch gears here. I want to talk about Charlie, because I know you have beautiful twins. As you know, I have twin brothers. You have
Yep.
3 kids. And I don't want to steal your thunder. So how do you handle childcare right now?
My goodness. I mean, I really do look at it as a holistic scope of not just where the kids are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is at Vivvi, right? I'm very fortunate on that perspective, but it's everything else that goes into it, right? And so in working with my wife, I said this before, I might be the CEO of Vivvi. She is the CEO of the Bonello household. And so much of this has been about communication and about routines. And so we know that when we get home, a lot of this is, let's get the twins ready. Let's get the twins fed and ready for bed. While she's getting the twins ready for bed, I'm feeding the 2-year-old. After they're at bed, we put together their lunches for the next day. And then, we either work or help or hang out and watch TV. In the morning, that alarm goes off and it is like it's like an assembly line. So I'm getting Grace ready. She's getting the twins ready. We get them in the car and we're driving down into the city. I mean, this is a little bit of a well-oiled machine at this point, but it took us 7 months to get there. And look, as a parent, every parent knows this, whether you have 1 kid or 20 kids, plans are aspirational at best. So you just have to find the humor in it, find the love in it, and really lean on communication and thoughtfulness, because all this is hard. I'll say one other thing. On the weekends, we've really tried to make sure that we do something for each other and something for the family, just as a win that we can have. And it's nice to be able to do that. But again, we're also very fortunate to have access to resources like Vivvi and to have a family that's nearby. The second thing I'll say is relying on our family has been so important, and really being able to ask for help. My parents are actually here right now with the twins and Grace so that I could work from home for the day. They come over every Thursday, right? And that took a lot on both of our sides to get comfortable with that and feel okay asking. This is the symphony of life, right? And so I think step one is kind of, I don't know how to put it, maybe burying any pride that we have, because this is the only way that you can really survive to some extent with the all the demands on parents from every angle.
Absolutely. Charlie, we have a few questions coming in from the audience, and I want to share some of them with you. The first question: how can people secure consistent childcare or emergency childcare when no longer located near big cities? And this family had just moved from Chicago to mid-Michigan, so somewhere in the Midwest.
Wow. Well, it's tougher. And like I said before, this is endemic. So there might be more folks in the big cities, but it's hard to find care anywhere you are. So number one, don't beat yourself up about where you are. It's tough everywhere. Number two, I think it's really looking at the resources that are available to you, right? So like for us in particular, when we work with employers, we like to say that for backup care, we want to give people 3 options at all times. The first is in-center care. So we have partners around the country where people can access care in one of their centers. By the way, every single licensed child care facility in the entire country is a matter of public record. If you Google child care regulations by state, it'll bring you to a government website, and you can search by state and by municipality to find everything that's within a couple of mile radius of you that's both in-home and in-center care. So it's a great resource that almost nobody knows about other than people who are in the business. I would encourage you to take a look at that. So the first is in-center care. The second is in-home care. And so we partner with a lot of agencies around the country. I know in Michigan, one of the ones that we really like is called Kennedy Care, if that's helpful, that provide in-home caregivers either on a regular basis or on an emergency basis. And the third is Care Cash. And this goes back to that idea that so many of us rely on the broad, invisible, unsupported network of caregivers that we all rely on. It's Nana, it's a neighbor, it's a cousin, it's somebody within your trusted village. So we work with employers to actually send financial subsidies to families for the provision of care that they secure independently. I always think about it as a 3-point plan, because it's likely that 2 of them are going to fall apart, right? And so I hope that that's a helpful way of starting to look at this. But it's not easy, and there's no silver bullet answer.
No, it's not. I love the idea of the Care Cash, because that means, I don't necessarily, need to utilize the, whether it's the in-home care or the physical childcare. I could just use, somebody in my area, but of course still through Vivvi and get reimbursed. I'm assuming that's how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's oftentimes again people that are within the trusted village for families. And again, for so many families that we work with, many of them were nurses or in hospitality, and they had hours that fell outside the range of most child care programs or most caregivers. And so who do they rely on? They rely again on Nana, on a neighbor, on a cousin. And so when we think about it, we really think about it almost as a double bottom line of being able to not only support the working families, but paying for that otherwise unpaid labor that we all know exists and kind of exists in the shadows statistically. It's just so unfair to everybody. This is what it means by honoring the whole person.
I love that so much. And you actually got my wheels turning, because I had my mom, when I had my first child, come stay with us. And, we didn't pay her anything. We just said, go for it. Thanks for birthing me and now helping with your grandchild. And now with my fourth child, and she came over, we literally said, this is your pay, right? Because we could have just paid a nanny and you're here. This is your pay for 2 months, right, of caring for your grandchild. And she was just so appreciative. And, it definitely was different than the very first experience. And I think this goes to everything we've talked about here, Mother Honestly, which is we need to continue to find ways to reduce this unpaid labor, because that is what wears on, women the most, right? And quite frankly, we see that in terms of mental health crisis, anxiety, and, everyone is languishing. And we're going to get to that. We have a panel today around, the fact that we've all been languishing for the past, especially in the last 2 years. And a lot of that is due to lack of childcare.
Absolutely. Languishing is the perfect way to put it. I'll tell everybody this. A lot of what I do is spend time talking with HR leaders around the country. And I was talking to the head of HR for North American consulting company that's one of the biggest ones, that's a household name, and just talking about childcare and their needs. And they said, well, we don't really know where it fits in. It's not exactly a benefit. It's not exactly XYZ. I said, well, what are your priorities and where does childcare fit in? And she actually said, childcare isn't really something that I've been thinking about. What I'm most concerned with is, number one, retaining our female talent. Number two, attracting mid-level career women. And number three, reducing burnout. And I just sat there kind of jaw agape and said, what do you think is holding you back from this, right? And for somebody at that level, for a company of that size to articulate it in that way, just kind of blew my mind, and said, this is why we need Mother Honestly, right? This is why we need to have these open, frank conversations, because there's still many people for whom it's just not clicking.
Absolutely. Charlie, we have one more question before we let you go. What locations does Vivvi serve for employer-based childcare or employer-sponsored childcare?
So we work with companies of all sizes. Seriously, our smallest employer partner has 10 employees and our largest has 50,000. We serve them anywhere that they are. So our goal is, when we talk to employers, to be able to say, we can serve your children 0 to 2, 2 to 5, and 6 to 18. We can do it in our schools, which we can build on campuses anywhere in the country. We can do them in our partner schools, which already exist around the country. We can do it in your homes, and we can do it globally through our virtual tutoring and our financial subsidy platform. So it really is meant to give that kind of comprehensive coverage to employers. Again, it really depends on the employer and their need and their size, but candidly, we're talking to a 400-person company in Kansas right now about building something on their campus because they really care and they want to be doing something like that. We're also talking to a 50,000-person company in New Jersey about doing something there. So the fact of the matter is, I think so many people look at this, that it has to be considered an investment and not an expense, because when you look at it that way, the return is unparalleled by almost anything else that you can find in the world.
Thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us. And for our audience, Vivvi, actually, we put together a toolkit in combination or in partnership with Vivvi around how smart companies can subsidize childcare. We also have a toolkit around how to find the right childcare. These are amazing resources that we have spent hours and hours working with various thought leaders across the country, as well as with Vivvi, to put together this wonderful resource. A lot of you are asking for this, and I am just so grateful to you, Charlie, and your team for working hard with us on getting these toolkits available to everyone participating today.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Blessing. Thank you everybody for joining, and I'm so excited to see the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
All right.